I-V-M.
You've tuned into a show called Mr. and Mrs. Binge-Watch and you were expecting a spoiler-free episode. So there are many spoilers on this episode. Kripya dhyan dijiye.
Hi, this is Aniruddha Guha and you're tuned into Mr. and Mrs. Binge-Watch. I'm the Mr. The Mrs., as you know, is Janice and Aniruddha. That does not change. It remains the same every week.
But I asked a question last week about this, that how do we make our opening intro more exciting?
But
could you guys send us some suggestions of how do you say it?
Do you know how many times you started giving an intro and say, this is Mr. and Mrs. Binge-Watch, I'm Janice and Aniruddha, and then you just stop, waiting for me to then introduce myself and say, and I'm Aniruddha Guha. That's like...
See, Ani, think of us as RJs.
Flow
No, if we were on air live, it would be like that. Hi, मैं हूँ RJ Janice और मेरे साथ है...
So then you've got to tell me that before we record it. So I'll keep that in mind next time.
This is pro business, bro.
But
now
anyway,
now we're professional. Okay, now we know this shit.
Quickly moving on from this conversation. Netflix is out with yet another teen show. I don't know कौन देख रहा है ये shows or what their data analytics is telling them, but clearly there is a huge audience out there for teen shows because they're just piling them on one after the other. It's
I'm audience.
Yes, of course you're audience.
These.
I know
don't
you
stop
are.
making them.
If 13 Reasons Why never existed, I don't think this entire explosion of teen shows on Netflix specifically would have happened. But of course, we all know how, that just became an overnight sensation and then they just kept coming out with newer and newer teen shows. There is a large number of Netflix originals that come out every year, movies which are set in the campus. It's almost like that typical high school campus movie genre has entirely moved from American theaters to Netflix.
But there's a good reason for it, right? I mean, for example, last year, their big breakout hit was To All the Boys I've Loved Before, which, of course, went on to become such a big hit, that now they've done a part 2. And really, I mean, anyone who's watched part 1 will tell you that it didn't require a part 2.
See, Janice, even though you're a fan of the movie, you probably don't know that the author has written 3 books. So it was always meant to be a trilogy.
Oh, really?
Yes. So there's a third part coming as well.
Oh, dear.
I don't know why I know such trivia, but I do.
I'm just saying that
you're just disappointed about how shit it
was. They've already, part 1 was interesting. Part 1 was exciting. Part 1 was great teenage romance trash, right? Part 2 is just like, now you've overcooked the mashed potatoes. They don't taste good anymore.
Okay.
And everything on this new film is overcooked and shit.
See, I still don't have an opinion, Janice. Why don't you get the fact that I'm trying to move away from the conversation about To All the Boys I've Loved Before?
Why are we doing an episode on teenage shows?
I'll tell you why.
If you don't like teen shows.
Because Netflix has just dropped a new show called I'm Not Okay With This. And
Aniruddha is not okay with this dropping of multiple teen shows every month.
I'm not okay with the genre, but I like the show. So look, it's not like teen shows aren't enjoyable. Like you and I loved Euphoria last year, which came out on HBO.
We also loved season 1 of 13 Reasons Why.
Yeah, sure. I'm talking about...
And 2, which we watched in Spain.
I'm talking about more recent examples. I'm saying, for example, even a Sex Education, which is a teen show from Great Britain, is a great show. But I'm saying that there's something such as too much of a good thing, right? I mean, but I'm sure there is an audience out there that does not really care about quality or about whether they are serving up new stories or not and just want to watch comfort TV.
So let me tell you this. So let me give you an example. So when you and I were on vacation and we had someone come and babysit our cat babies, what was she watching on Netflix?
Some Korean teen show.
She was watching Korean teen dramas, which according to my best friend Delshad, K-soaps and K-teen dramas are amazingly shite, but they're addictive AF.
Yeah, so correct. So, I mean, going back to the earlier point that there's clearly a huge market for these teen shows, I start watching a new teen show with a bit of trepidation because my whole thought process is that there is going to be more angsty teenage issues being dealt with. There is going to be that very annoying jock who's going to bully everyone. There is going to be that girl who's suddenly undergoing bodily transformation and trying to deal with it. And there is going to be a kid dealing with his or her sexuality. And all of those are now par for the course. Which
you
is why
sound like a boomer now. Huh?
I mean, look, this is just a fact, right? And then when I got into I'm Not Okay With This, I remember, I mean, it was obviously a trending show and people were talking about it, got great reviews. which is what made me watch it.
Not the fact that your wife was forcing you to watch it.
No, absolutely
because
not.
On the weekend, right, Guha and I looked at each other and we're like, what do we watch? And my first pick actually was I am not okay with this. But thankfully, we also agreed on Bosch.
Yeah. Well, my whole deal was I'm not wasting Sunday on a teen drama, however great it might be.
It's only 2.5 hours long
which
and complete.
All the more reason. Sunday is the only day you have time when you can do a longer binge. But anyway, the point being, it's not like a show I didn't want to watch. I just didn't want to see it on that specific day. And then, of course, we got around to watching it and we really enjoyed it, right? It's a really good show.
Yeah, I mean, the premise initially when you watch it, actually, if anyone who's watched the trailer, you realize that it's following it has all the usual ingredients of what a teen show has. So he's right, there's Sydney Novak, played by Sophie Lillis, who's playing your, teenager who's just lost her father, who's going through all kinds of depression and who's going through all kinds of teenage issues. There's her best friend.
What are her teenage issues, Janice? Tell us, come on. Let's do
a
bucket list.
One is she can't figure her sexuality.
Okay.
2 is she can't figure out all these bodily changes like zits on her thighs.
New stuff.
3 is she can't figure out boys. And like, what do
Never
women in general
before.
find so interesting in boys?
Never seen that before.
4 is she has a problem with her mother. Like she's constantly rebelling without a cause.
Wow, parental issues. Never heard of that before.
5 is she's extra protective towards her, sibling because, well, they don't have a father now, which also is a common recurring theme in so many teenage shows. The older teen is always up. The younger teen is always like taken care of by the older ones.
Yeah, it's basically there for comic relief. Even in this show.
Not comic relief, it's more like, oh, cute scene.
Yeah.
Cute scene, dala na.
He'll act like an oversmart in front of your older siblings' friends. And that's also something that they've done.
By the way, on this show, at one point, he cooks dinner and he makes what is a mix of mac and cheese, red beans, bacon, ham, cereal, and maple syrup. And it's disgusting when they put it on the plate, but apparently it might taste good.
But that's a show I would watch. If there was ever a cooking show which mixed all these ingredients, I'd probably see it.
Okay, are we done with the bucket list? But essentially it's about Sydney Novak's character. So you think...
But what makes it interesting? What makes it interesting, Janice? Tell us.
What makes it interesting is that through the show, actually from the very first episode, she begins to realize that something is wrong with her. And that something is actually that she has telekinetic powers.
Yeah.
That she can make objects move with her mind.
Yeah.
Except that, in a lot of shows or films where we've seen this, it's generally like the person already has these traits and it's not necessarily always triggered by something. Over here, it's specifically triggered only when she gets upset or angry.
Yeah. So the show is based on a graphic novel by Charles Forsman, who also wrote The End of the F***ing World, which was something
another teen show that Janice has watched and Guha has turned his nose up at.
Which Netflix adapted.
It has 2 seasons, Ani, okay? It has 2 seasons.
Sure, I'll get around to watching it.
And the same guys have now made
Janice,
I'm Not Okay With This.
Yes, I'm sold on it. I'll see it now.
By the way, there's also some connection with one of the creators is also the guy who's also worked on Sex Education. So
yeah. Okay, cool, Janice. I get it. Amazing. I'm
this
showing
team knows how to produce
for those who can't
shows.
see but are only hearing, I'm showing 2 thumbs up to Janice right now.
This is one of those episodes that should have been a video.
I feel like Charles Forsman basically came up with this idea that was, what if teen angst was a superhero? And then wove was a superpower. And then just basically wove an entire story around it. Because that's pretty much what this show is about. It's an interesting take. That's what I liked about it. I liked the fact that you play around with cliches and then turn them on their head in a sense. You also, in the initial bits, I was wondering whether he's getting too little and trying to show mental depression as some, manifesting in some sort of a superpower. But then as time goes on, you realize that it's really about, teen superhero movies by their very nature are fun, frothy. It's about goodness. It's about, saving the world and all those things. And sort of adult superhero movies are about darkness, sort of facing your inner demons and all of those, typical arcs. What I liked about this show is that it combined those 2 elements, know. It takes the teen movie, it takes the super movie, and it combines the 2 genres, because what it then does is that every time she experiences the superpower, she's going through some sort of personal turmoil.
Yeah.
So whether it's, her being furious about her best friend, sort of giving her less attention than her boyfriend because she's actually in love with her, or, just having to deal with her father's death. not having come to terms with it, manifesting itself into a superpower in itself is a very interesting premise, because as we see on the show, shit goes down every time she is troubled or angry or upset. And it almost makes you want to think that if you take all those teen show tropes and you just, sort of feed in this superpower element to it, how would they all look?
Basically, she's Hulk. If you think about it, Hulk,
Mini Hulk,
Mini Hulk who doesn't sort of metamorphosize into something different.
Yeah.
She just then her brain blows up.
Yeah. So, also, in a sense, this is an origin story, right? So you don't know where they're going to take the show.
You think those zits are actually going to grow into some sort of a physical transformation? Ew. Anyway, coming back to what I liked about the show, I liked that they took very cliched characters and didn't give them a very cliched arc. I mean, case in point, Dina, who plays her best friend, they constantly, alluding to the fact that now Tina's going to turn into this typical bitchy best friend who now refuses to, recognize or be friends with her because she's grown too big or too popular for her. Yet they never do it. Dina, in fact, continues to be her friend till the end of the show.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that she's dating the jock, despite the fact that there's been a sexual encounter, despite the fact that Sydney Novak's character is just plain weird. She's also a bit controlling and pushy very subtly if you look at it. But the thing I didn't like is I feel like the show didn't tell us enough. Just when you feel like the show has started, it ends.
But I think that's why I said it's an origin story.
No, I get that they wanted to do just 20-minute episodes, and it's literally, guys, you can sit, if you've got 2.5, 3 hours where you just need to switch off from everything and watch something that's maybe very easy, binge-worthy, watch. It's not okay with this. But my problem is I feel like you've not given me enough of an idea of what's going to happen in future seasons for me to come back or to be excited by it.
No, but that's... okay.
No, what I'm trying to say is that I just feel like you've shown us that she has this power. You've shown us how it's damaging maybe her friendships, or it could possibly damage her friendships and relationships. I mean, that last episode, the way they leave it is freaking freaky. But I don't know enough about what has happened to Sydney Novak and what is their superpower for me to be excited about what they could do in future seasons.
But I think that by doing that, they're actually subverting their entire superpower. I mean, you tend to oversimplify and over-explain superhero stories. The other thing that you need to keep in mind, when you're going into the show, you're aware that it's 7 episodes of 20 minutes each. There's a reason why it's a comic book adaptation. A comic book, unlike a novel, is supposed to give you that sort of quick fix of an entertainment, tell you something quirky, tell you something interesting in a short period of time. And I also feel that building on stories for too long tend to take them into cliched spaces. So I actually found that refreshing. I get what you're trying to say. The reason being that we are so used to watching those specific arcs in shows like this. I'll tell you what, if this show had done what you are saying it should have done, there would have been no difference between this show and Stranger Things. Because her arc is so much like Levin's by that logic. And in fact, I was dreading the fact that at the end of the day, if it's just about a troubled teen dealing with a superpower, and if she finds a way to deal with it, then you're in very regular superhero territory, right? Because
then
from
you're
there
like
on,
one of the X-Men, where now you will be employed by this one agency and you will be taken around the world to solve issues.
So here, I think the purpose of the show is very different from any other superhero show, which is what I liked about it. That's the only reason why we are recommending it, right?
Yeah.
In the sense that they have dealt with a superpower like it was some sort of trauma. It's the kind of like, for example, if you were, say, bipolar and, wanted to keep your life free of the kind of consequences that has. Or if you had some sort of physical ailment or another mental illness, for example. What they've done is they've made a superpower, a baggage for this girl who's already dealing with. So it's like your one-line pitch is that imagine everything going to shit around you. And then you get the superpower that you just cannot deal with.
And you can only channel that superpower when you think about all the shit that's going on around
you. So I think that by itself is such a fascinating premise. And I feel that I get what you're trying to say in the sense that I get what you're saying about you feeling like they didn't do enough with it. But I thought that was one of its USPs where in 7 episodes, like you said, within 2.5 hours, you get these interesting characters, you get an arc. You understand what the show is about. Also, they've ended it on an interesting note, which means season 2 might actually answer all the questions that you have.
No, fair. I'm just saying that, quick comparison with this, because these are the same makers who made End of the Fucking World. And there, I think you need to just watch one season to understand why I'm making this comparison. That one season gives you so much more than these 7 episodes really could.
Yeah, but every episode is
of
not
course,
the same,
the story
right?
is different, but I'm talking about it set in a similar kind of universe. In terms of the setting, you never see too many people around. It's very small. It's a very tight cast. Everyone has a very specific role to play. Like over here, there's not a single scene or moment wasted on anything other than the principal characters who are contributing to the story. Correct?
Yeah.
There's no like time pass happening all around or whatever. So I'm saying the same makers, I feel like, gave us a lot. Like, this is not probably one of my favorite teen shows that I watched so far. There are shows that I feel like are far superior. It's a good time pass watch. I need to see more of this show to decide whether I really like it, love it, or it's amazing or whatever. For now, it's cute. Watch it if you have the time to kill.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's definitely a lot more than that, because I don't generally watch teen shows. And the only reason I am recommending this show is that the fact that even if you're not somebody who enjoys teen dramas, it's still a very quirky, interesting idea, which I think takes all those typical teen show tropes and turns them on its head. And it's just sufficiently dark and wicked, and I really liked it. But, moving on to the scene stealers, one of the things I really liked about the show was its cast.
Yeah.
Young cast made up of young adult actors, all of them really, really good. But the guy who really stood out for me was this guy called Wyatt Olive, who plays this character called Stanley Barber, or Stan, who's this really quirky neighbor of Sydney's, and he's smitten with her. And by that logic, it's a very, again, cliched kind of a track of a guy in love with the protagonist who actually is in love with her best friend, and all of that is fine. But I liked how they played his track. They made him a quirky guy. I mean, the way he presents himself, or the way he's dressed up.
He's actually
or just his mannerisms. He's just so self-assured,
a well-dressed geek.
And he's so self-assured and cool. And I really loved this one sequence that they did with him. In fact, it's also my wow moment of the show, which was reminiscent of that opening sequence of Sex Education season 2, where they do this whole montage of a guy just getting, you've seen so many montages of girls getting ready to go to, say, prom or to a party or whatever. And they do this really cool 80s music sort of a treatment of him just doing crazy stuff, doing drugs, getting ready. And the reason that sequence works is because you're just watching a cool sequence, and then he gets into a car, and then that car goes ahead and gets into an accident, and it sort of explodes into a completely different scene altogether.
Yeah.
So I really liked how they kind of blended those two scenes together. So that's my wow moment, and that's also my scene stealer of the show. Who was yours?
My scene stealer is Sophia Lillis, who plays Sydney Novak. I mean, I feel like the kind of issues that she's dealing with, and when the Hulk inside her mind comes out, it's so morbid and it's so angry and it's so strange at times that you needed a slightly baby-faced actor for this role. And she brings that warmth and that baby-faced cuteness to almost like, even when she's in the middle of a forest and she's angry and she screams and the entire forest sort of around her falls apart, which is, by the way, my wow moment on the show, you still empathize with her because of the way she looks and the way her mannerisms and her body language and the way she plays the role. It could very easily, by a slightly more tough-looking girl, could have gone a very different way. Like, you would not have felt the amount of sympathy you feel for this character. But Sophia Lillis is a great casting.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I thought her performance was fantastic. She literally held the show on her shoulders. She's in every other scene of the show.
There's no other character
I think she's fantastic, and she, also she plays the girl with such unassuming charm. And she's also an actor we've seen a lot, right? She was in It, Chapter 1, along with Olive, in fact, who played Stan. And then she also played the younger version in Sharp Objects.
She's always in these strange shows.
Yeah.
Slightly morbid shows.
All dark stuff.
All dark, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, but I think here is where she really gets the opportunity to, play a real author-backed role.
Yeah.
She's just fantastic. So I would say I'm Not Okay With This is a really cool show. Anybody who has inhibitions about it being a teen show, and if you're not a fan of the teen show, you can still check it out. Give it one episode. They're really short 19-minute episodes. And you will see from the second episode onwards that the show goes into unexpected places. And if you're a teen show lover like Janice is, then it's party time for you.
So on our Binge-o-meter, for me, it's like a new flavor of ice cream. It's like, when you go to Naturals and they've tried a new fruit out for an ice cream flavor and you taste it, you think it's interesting. You just don't know if it's going to be in the legendary Hall of Ice Cream fame like the mango ice cream.
Wow, Janice, why do you think of Naturals is what I'm wondering, but fine. Except
it's relatable content, okay? Our audience is largely in India. Naturals
but I get what you're trying to say.
Nationwide
you're saying
ice
that
cream
if teen
chain.
shows were ice cream, then I'm not okay with this. Is a new flavor that you haven't really tried. It could really turn into something massive, or it could just disappear off the shelves.
Yeah, completely.
But right now it tastes good.
Now it tastes good. It's an interesting flavor. Interesting.
Okay, all right. So that was Janice and me talking about ice creams. Check us out next week when we take on sorbets in our next episode. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
And if you like this ice cream flavor, don't forget to check out other ice creams on the IVM network. You can also listen to us on Ice Cream Podcast app. No, I'm taking that too far. You can also listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media handles, which surprisingly have nothing to do with ice creams or sorbet. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to reach out to Guha and me, send us an ice cream in our DM, not the emoji real ice cream. Actually, wo DM mein kaise bhejoge? Anyway, if you want to reach us on Twitter and Instagram, I am at Janisek85 on Instagram and Twitter, and Aniruddha is at Aniguha on Instagram and Twitter.
And Janice knows how to kill a good joke. She really does.
And in case you dream about ice creams and sorbets tonight,
oh God,
it's not our fault. We will tune in next week.
See ya.
I hope you enjoyed that show. We'd like to thank our sponsors this week, HDFC Life and Paytm Money. Also, just a very quick note, I would really appreciate it if you guys could fill out a really short survey on our website. It's on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It's just a brand recognition survey for us to kind of work with the advertisers and give them some data. So it's a very short, less than 1 minute survey. Really appreciate your help in filling it out. And let me tell you a couple of things that you should check out this week. On Paperback, Rachita and Satyajit are joined by the host of Litnama, Lakshmi Krishnan. They talk about women's role in writing and fiction written by women. On The Habit Coach, we have a Women's Day special where Ashton talks about periods, PMS, PCOD, and other taboo subjects which shouldn't be taboo at all. On the Empowering series, Zarina is joined by actor Jim Sarb. They talk about the art of storytelling and his unconventional characters. On Agla Station Adulthood, Ayushi and Ritasha talk about coming of rage and coming of age. On IVM Life, Ritika, Alika and Antarish welcome new producer at IVM, Sumit, to discuss their ultimate fantasy jobs. Don't miss Sumit's first ever recommendation on the show. Thanks and keep listening.
Advertising is dead. Yep, you heard me right. Advertising is dead. We're all in the content business now. Let's not call it news, TV, radio, etc., etc. It's all content, and we're in the middle of this weirdly exciting phase where all the borders and lines that have been drawn over decades has been swept away by this lovely thing called the internet. We're a show where we don't dwell on just the stuff that is now, but rather the wider stuff about advertising, media, content, and the whole goddamn circus surrounding it. Tune in every Tuesday for our weekly unboxing of the mystery box we used to call advertising. I'm Varun Dugirala, co-founder and content chief at The Glitch, and this is my new podcast, Advertising is Dead.